Season's greetings and welcome to another episode of Ghosts Are Near, where we discuss various aspects of the paranormal and paranormal research. I'm your host, Keith Johnson. With me are my co-hosts, Sandra Johnson.
Happy holidays.
And Carl Johnson.
Holiday greetings. Ho ho.
Very good. Sandra and I, of course, are the founders of New England Anomalies Research. And I'd like to take a moment to say hello to our friend Ryan from Scottish Paranormal. And we very much enjoyed seeing you on Most Haunted, the Halloween live episode.
Yay, Ryan!
Really getting out there, Ryan. God bless. And today we have some very interesting guests with us. The New England Paranormal Video Research Group is a non-profit organization which was founded in 2006. They not only document and research paranormal phenomena, they also try to help people identify and understand any paranormal situations they may be dealing with. With me is Matthew Sinsigalli, the founder, and Don Carter, who is the historian and archivist.
Yeah.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Well, let me start out by asking, how did you first get interested in exploring the paranormal? I know you did some military service, both of you.
Did some military service, spent a year in Iraq, and came back, saw a lot of stuff happen over there. And
Right.
Since I came back, just kind of ever since been in the back of my head of wondering if stuff does exist with the outside of, our so-called vision, that we can't see, and just been in pursuit of it ever since.
How did you two meet?
We worked together. Yep. My interest in the paranormal was a little different. I started with an interest in history and developed into folklore, and I was looking for a correlation between the two. And perhaps paranormal activity sometimes happens as a result of historical events.
Now, as your name signifies, you specialize in video and audio.
Yep, video, audio, photos as well, but we tend to stick more to video because, well, I tend to feel that the video is the hardest thing to disprove. If you get a video of something appearing right in front of the camera,
Right.
a little bit harder
Right.
to disprove it than an audio file or a photo,
Surveillance, exactly.
Yeah.
I noticed there's a very interesting video on your site. Obviously, you didn't take it, but it's from Hampton Court in England.
The Hampton Court Ghost.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that. That is very interesting. And nobody's really disproved that, have they?
Not to my knowledge. Our old co-founder, Patrick, he's the one that put that up on the site. He helped me design the site. He's no longer with us. But he put that up there, and he had really strong feelings that it's a legit tape. It certainly could be real and certainly could be fake. It's not that hard to throw on a dress or something like that and open up a door and then step back in. But on the other hand, what's to say that it's not?
Right.
It's first-hand experience that
That's
puts it
great.
out there.
That's great. And it's good to have an historian on the team, too. I know a lot of groups don't necessarily use an historian or an archivist that actually, well, what do you do?
Right. Well, that's my work begins initially even before we take on a case. And I'll check out the history and the background of it, which I think a lot of paranormal groups don't do. And when they do publish work on that, whether it's on their websites or in the form of an article or even a book, some of them are so full of misinformation because they haven't done the background historical research. They take people at their words, homeowners and whomever else, and urban legends as being gospel, which just aren't true. And you have to check newspaper archives, you have to go to your historical society, you have to actually do the background legwork to prove that something does have an unusual history and such, that perhaps it does correlate to paranormal activity that's going on in that area.
Right, right. And you may be going out to a location which is not necessarily a well-known location.
Correct.
Such as Anawan Rock in Rehoboth, something like that. That has very well-documented history, or Salem, Massachusetts.
Right. And some places are very well known locally, but not to anybody outside of the state or something. Something like a Barrahack or one of the ghost towns in Connecticut. They're very well known to the locals, but not necessarily to anyone much further from that. I think Dudleytown is the only really well-known ghost town in Connecticut that's nationally well-known.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that because that does go along with historical fact versus urban
legend. The
right.
legend and the history are very different animals when it comes to Dudleytown.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, most people just buy the legend. They don't bother to do the research.
Barrahack too, we found. Barrahack was, when we went there, we were fully expecting to hear, voices from the 18th century and horse-drawn carriages and everything. And we went there during the day and stayed till about, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock
We were
at
there-
night.
yeah, it
And
got dark.
the only thing we heard was the owls, an owl hooting and, a bat swooping
Yeah,
at
bat.
my head, and that was about it.
There was one loud owl. That was
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah.
though.
But that was as far as our any experiences from there. So.
Does your organization focus more on locations where there are urban legends or cemeteries, these
For-
I try to.
bed and
Yeah.
breakfast, that sort of thing?
Well, there's
I
two.
present the options to Matt, and then he chooses which ones we actually investigate. But I purposely choose ones that have a strong foundation of either legends that date back at least 100 years or more. Because a modern legend doesn't mean much to me. They get started so easily and die out so quickly. But something that, like Gay City, has a ghost legend that goes back to the Civil War, so over 150 years. And if it's lasted that long, then there might be something to it. If generation after generation keep, believe that something is going on there.
Yeah, the other part with our group too is we have a book that we're writing, and we also have the investigations that we're doing. Sometimes the book and an investigation go hand in hand. The investigation is going to go in the book, and other times if we do a residential investigation or something like that, it'll remain anonymous and that won't show up in the book. So it's kind of like two different parts of the group that are going on at the same time.
Right.
If I may interject, Don, I've heard you refer to as the skeptic of your group. I presume you mean a healthy dose of
I like-
objective
I like to think of an
detachment.
open-minded skeptic, yes.
Are
I
you
believe
both?
in a soul, so if you believe in a soul, the possibility that ghosts exist is always there.
But on the other hand, you're not prone.
I haven't seen one yet,
Yeah, right.
I haven't had my big paranormal experience yet. Like most people that get into this start because they've had one.
That was going to be actually my next question. If either of you had sort of an experience that started you on this path towards investigating the paranormal.
Well, for me, I mean, just dealing with Iraq in my own way and seeing the death and destruction that went on there, just through my own eyes, and then coming back and wondering, well, what happens to your soul once you pass over? And that's where I started out. And one of the places that I work at, I started going through there and started, little recorder, getting voices, whatever, and went from there.
So you're very grounded, I would say, in the reality of life and death.
Yep, by far.
Could you share with us about some of the investigations you've been on? I know there is client confidentiality, of course, which we deal with as well.
Sure.
But what could you share with us?
Which one would you like to start with?
Well, Gay City is one of our more interesting ones. So I think Gay City and the Hartford Mansion are probably our two most interesting ones. Gay City was great because I had it was a ghost town that existed from late 1700s to about the Civil War, when a lot of communities died out, economic deaths, and people moved on to more populous cities and towns because they could no longer make the mill towns run anymore. They just weren't producing enough with the factories and such coming along. But Gay City was interesting because there had been two historic murders that occurred just before the 1860s, and one by a blacksmith of his apprentice who showed up late to work one day, and the other one of a jewelry peddler who was killed by the local charcoal burner, stuffed in a pit, and as blackened skeleton found later by the townfolk. And supposedly the jewelry peddler skeleton has been seen, and so has a young boy running to work and will never get there on time. Sort of, some say he's even holding his own head. But Gay City is great because the cellar foundations are all still there. It's a ghost town now, and it's open to the public. It's the Hebron. It's the Gay City State Park in the town of Hebron in Connecticut. And anybody can go there and check it out if they want. There are cellar holes there. We got GPS coordinates of all the interesting ones when we went, and we had really good data from one of the foundations, the largest one, which we believe was a meeting house or a church. That's where we got the half apparition. The interesting thing about that was our sensitive in the group, Gail, who knew nothing of the history of it before we went in. When we got to that foundation, which me and Matt knew it was the biggest one, and we suspected this was probably the meeting house or the church.
or something.
Gail said the same thing, which we already knew. This was a meeting house. People aired their grievances here. It was used for court proceedings, also as a church. And then she said something interesting, which I hadn't thought of. And she said, people were restrained here. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like a stocks or pillory where you put the town drunk in a colonial period? And she said, yeah, like that. So we didn't think of it till later when we reviewed our photographs, and we got this photograph. It's a great one of the green, what we call the green man. It's very clearly a head, 2 arms, and half of a torso stretched out like a man on his back with his arms pinned behind him, which made it very interesting for us.
Yeah, but the interesting thing, we have the 3 photos in succession, and it actually shows the mist sitting on top of the foundation and dropping into the foundation. And then it actually shows it pooling on like the bottom, and then it shows it just kind of forming even more. The interesting part about it is no one was using flashlights at the time. You know, we were in total darkness, you know, and the camera was just taken with the flash of a camera. There wasn't another camera that flashed at the same time. So it was all no lights, just the flash of a camera, and we caught that.
That's fascinating. You caught it in motion, in other words.
Yeah, but we didn't know it at the time.
Right.
We didn't see
You didn't see it.
until later review. You know, there's people who say, well, you know, ferns give off light. Well, you know,
Say they're phosphorescent.
yeah.
Well, this was light that was traveling.
Yes, this you can actually see it
The
drop
mist
down.
came down
You
into
can
the
follow the
cell
3
and then
pictures.
formed into the apparition.
A traveling apparition,
Yeah.
which is rare. Rare to capture on.
We got
kind of
3
recording
pictures in
device.
succession of it dropping down in and then pooling and then going kind of like up against the wall, up against the back of the rocks, the background there. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, something you mentioned I find interesting. You obviously take a very scientific analytical approach, yet you also have a sensitive in your group. Now, how does your sensitive fit in with your investigations? I
Well,
understand she's
Do you
very
want to answer
accurate.
it? Well, she's been about my best friend, well, one of my best friends for like 6 or 7 years. And I know her very well. And even though I'm the skeptic in the group and she's the opposite end of the spectrum, I know and trust her as a person far more than I would anybody else that proclaimed to be a psychic. And I would not, you know, and most of them charge money too, and that in itself, I wouldn't believe them. But because it was her, and I trusted her as a person, and she's so credible of a person, you know, I'd never seen her do this before, so I had her come out on investigation with us, and she just wowed us right off the bat.
Yeah, the biggest thing is that she, basically the way that we look at it, or the way that I look at it is you go in, if you're a normal paranormal investigator, you don't have a sensitive or something, it's kind of like you're going in with a little pen light and shining your pen light around trying to find an apparition or an anomaly or something.
Right.
And you bring a sensitive in, and it's kind of like she's coming in with one of those million candle power spotlights, and she's saying, it's right over here, take pictures over here, or, you know, set up over in this way, facing this way. That's how we use her.
Well, I like that she points the way to evidence.
Right.
Yes.
She might give us a good idea of where to point the camera or
Right,
something.
exactly.
And it's interesting when because she's the only one that we keep in the dark as far as the background history of the place before we go in. And it's nice when what she says dovetails, doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's very impressive. When what she says dovetails nicely with what I already knew of the history of the place. Of course, anybody who's a skeptic can say that I conversed with her before time and told her prior information, but I know personally that that's
Right.
not true, that I did not tell her any of that information. And when she can come up with little details, you know, specific wars, specific time periods that these people remember, or first names sometimes that I know is very important for that particular location.
And, if we didn't have her with us on the Gay City investigation, we would have gotten those 3 pictures of the light anomaly, the mist dropping down into the foundation hole. As I was down in the foundation hole, and she was saying that something was, you know, there was 6 spirits or something
Yeah,
that
she
were
said there's
or
one coming
several,
towards you.
yeah, and one was coming towards me, and you know, just started snapping pictures, and we got it.
She's obviously a very valuable member of your
Oh
group.
yes, yep. Not only just with her sensitive abilities, but just as a person, she is a wonderful person.
Excellent.
You know, she's very calming effect on people.
Yeah,
Even
she's-
just being around her, she's a great person.
Now, does she ever get overwhelmed on an investigation? Say if there's really
Yeah, one
a
time.
negative entity involved, potentially negative, does she block it out, or?
Not
Yeah.
so much as
I saw it happen
A
one time at Old
negative-
Newgate Prison.
yeah,
But-
but it's not so much as a negative. It's so much as she feels that certain people need help, and that's where she finds herself getting emotional. Is, you know, trying to help help spirits. I haven't seen anything really. I didn't go on the Old Newgate investigation, but apparently she had something at the Old
So-
Newgate.
There were just too many for her to, and she
Yeah.
knew that she couldn't help them because there was so much misery there.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Old Newgate Prison. It was back...
East Granby, yeah. That was till, there was a prison from 1773 till 1823, I think, about that. It was a prison for 53 years.
Connecticut area?
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah,
a hole
East
in the
Granby.
ground and caves.
And it's an old copper mine, so it's all underground, it's an old stone. And when you see the solitary confinement there, it's one of the creepier places in the state to actually walk through. And you can imagine it without electric lighting. And to be having been confined in those dark tunnels underground,
Right.
it must have been pretty horrendous for the Revolutionary War prisoners, the Tories and the Loyalists that were stuck down there.
Gail is more of our, she doesn't actually see, she can sense spirits and she can hear them. But she, whether she
Clairaudient and
chooses,
clairsentient, not clairvoyant.
whether she chooses not to see them, I think that might be the way that she chooses to.
Right.
I believe if she really wanted to, she probably could. But I mean, if I had those type of gifts, I personally wouldn't really want to. I don't know what I'd be seeing, you know.
I wouldn't want it either.
Now, I understand you were almost injured quite seriously on an investigation once.
Yep, one of the mansions in Hartford that we were investigating, I was going up to the house, and this house right next to it, these houses have old slate shingles that are about 2 feet long by about 1 feet wide, and I'd say about 1/4 inch thick. And walking up to the house, one of them let go off of the roof and slid and probably fell. I think the roof was like 40 feet and passed literally right in front of my face as I was walking into the door. And
You feel something was watching out for you at that moment?
it was something, you know, either that or we needed hard hats. But, you know, it was definitely an eye-opener. You know, it makes you look up, down, and all around when you go on an investigation, because you just never know. You know, you never know where something's going to come from.
Right. Well, of course, one of your specialties, as I mentioned, is the collection of EVPs, or electronic voice phenomena. And I understand you brought some examples with you?
Yes, yep. Actually, I have them right here.
Well, if you'd like to share some with us, we
Sure.
find that fascinating.
I don't know if it'll mess up the audio.
Well, we'll give it a try.
While you set that up, could you tell us a little bit, you mentioned something on your website about reverse EVP. If
Yep.
you could just explain that.
Yeah.
to everyone.
Reverse EVP, basically, when we collect a piece of evidence, audio evidence, that kind of doesn't make any sense to us, we'll run it through Adobe Audition 2.0, and they have a very simple function. It's the reverse function, and it'll basically take the sound file and put it in reverse. And sometimes when you have something that just isn't making sense, you just, out of total curiosity, play it in reverse. And
And
you know.
how many EVPs have you actually found that are reversed?
so far, I think we have two or
Two.
three that were, one was the Get Out that we had, and the other one was forwards. It sounds I'll play it for you, so I don't like to matrix people's minds, you know, tell them what they're going to hear before they hear it. But
We're
I
gonna
can
figure it out for ourselves.
yeah, I'll say after.
Sounds
think
like
that's
a
the best
plan.
way.
Yeah. Let's see. Best way to do that would be show you guys the mansion in Hartford. All right, this is the one forwards that I was telling you about. This is what we heard forwards. I don't know how you guys will hear it.
And this is the house taken before. Fail.
Right there, what you heard maybe sounds like fail or
Right,
flail,
right,
something around like that.
exactly.
Then our audio EVP specialist, Hayden Hall, very good guy. He studied with Todd Bates, and he, you know, he knows a lot about this stuff. And he took it and he said, "Yeah, you know, I do hear flail or fail, but you know, you reverse it, and then you start hearing what sounds like this."
And this is the house taken before. Quiet.
There.
And this is the house taken before. Quiet.
Me personally, I hear either liar or quiet, you know, something along that. It's
Or
definitely,
perhaps fire
yeah,
is another
fire,
possibility.
You know.
That's what I actually heard foyer, but fire would make more sense.
I didn't think of fire, but yeah.
You know,
'Cause
they're all.
I was interested in that because we've actually not gotten any EVPs that
Really?
were reversed. So
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, we've picked up just little tidbits here and little tidbits there, and this stuff doesn't make sense. So, you know, we just...
The Class Cs, you can't, nobody seems to agree on what
Right.
they
yeah,
are.
yeah. You know, and this,
Difficult.
yeah, you know, this, you know, when you have to reverse something, it's, with us, with our audio specialist, he likes, you know, the minimal amplification or anything that you have to do to it is the best. You know, he likes to keep everything original in its original format. So kind of reversing it, we don't like to do unless, you know, that's just not making any sense. And all of a sudden you're playing a reverse and wow, you know, hey, it's saying get out or get help or, you know, fail or fire or whatever. Some of the more interesting ones, I understand you guys also had the disembodied voice, which actually isn't an
Yes.
EVP.
Right, right, as opposed to a normal EVP, where
Yes.
you actually hear it audibly and you catch it on audio recording.
So it's just
Yeah.
voice phenomenon, right? Not electronic voice phenomenon,
Yeah.
actually.
We have that, which was
90% of our EVPs all come from one location. There's one,
Really?
there's one
Where is
hotspot that
Can I ask?
that's
Oh,
the
or is
one
it
we
a
can't
client?
talk about for
That's
anonymity. It's
the
unfortunately that's the
confidential
only
one.
one that we can't. I've only ever gotten one good or decent EVP, and that was from Fort Griswold in Groton, which isn't far from here.
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have the moan on this one, but I do have it. Sorry, guys, you have to bear with me here.
It's all right. I think that's fascinating when you actually, you hear it audibly going on,
Oh yeah.
as well as catching it on tape. And we've had that happen twice with us.
Really? It never happened to me. It's happened to Matt.
Yeah, this one, what I'll do is I'll play the unaltered, the moan. It might be hard to hear, and then I'll play the other one. And that was the one that we actually heard with our own ears. It wasn't an EVP, it was the disembodied voice. Me and my old co-founder were the only ones in the building on the second floor, and
Is this from the location that you need to keep confidential, where you've got
Yeah.
most of your
yes,
EVPs?
yeah.
Some
yeah.
of our best ones were
this,
from there.
This was also right after we
We can
did
tell you after the show.
Yeah, right after we did the airing on Spooky South Coast. It
Right,
was
yeah.
right when we had that.
Okay.
Right after we talked to them, we did an investigation, and this was it. This was one of the things, an hour and a half after talking to them, this is what we found. So here's
Holy
this.
water that I have. Yep. What was that?
It's hard to hear from further away.
Yeah, with that one, you know, that's the unedited, unaltered version.
Okay.
I have a cleaned up one. It's going to sound probably really metallic-y because it was really
Correct.
trying to bring up the moan.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the... that's what we pulled out, the moan, you know, but that's just clipping it and really isolating the moan. That's why you get the metallic sound when you start
Right.
doing noise reduction and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Our EVP specialist, Hayden, he wouldn't, you know, he'd take something like this and be like, oh, it's garbage. You know, the metallic sound, you know, it's not natural, and, you know, but I like it because I know that I heard it with my own
Actually,
ears, you know.
I could hear the unaltered version before it was cleaned up, and that
Yeah.
some emotion was really coming through in that.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you
And-
pick up from that, as far as the sound quality?
We heard it. We were on the second floor, and it came from the second floor. And we had the building secured. Me and my co-founder were the only ones in the building,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. There was no other living soul in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard it come from down the hall to the left.
What's your explanation as to why it would have moaned at that moment? I heard you
Well,
mentioning holy water,
yeah. Well, we weren't getting any results. That's the one and only time that I ever used
religious prophecy.
any type, yes.
Right.
And it's one thing that I kind of pride myself on not doing. But I was getting frustrated because we always get stuff out of this one house,
Mhm.
and nothing was happening. In fact, we were trying to get the entity or spirit to move the door, and nothing was happening. And on that current investigation, for my own personal reasons, I took a little vial of holy water with me, like I always do.
Mhm.
Well, I started doing. And I thought, well, you know, I didn't have this on the last times that I did this investigation, that I did the investigation here, so maybe that's what they're scared of. So, you know, I said, are you scared of the holy water that I have? And once I said that, you know, we heard the moan, scream, whatever you want to call it, from down the hall. And my co-founder said, yep. And I looked at him and said, what was that?
Well, it's interesting because both times that we actually heard an EVP while it was happening,
Mhm.
or a spirit voice, was during religious provocation.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were both screams. And the other interesting thing is that the more recent one, the female scream that we have, that we heard, didn't translate very well over into the recording
Really?
either.
Is that the-
It just more sounded like a whistle, whereas when we were there, actually there doing
Yeah,
the
it
lesson
sounds
at
a lot-
home,
that
it
one.
was
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, and you know why I think that is too? Were you guys in a lighted house, or was it nighttime when you were doing your investigation, or blessing of the house? What were the
It
conditions that
was
day?
late afternoon, early evening.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
still somewhat light out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you
Wasn't
know, I
totally
mean,
dark.
the body's natural senses, when it starts getting dark out and everything, you know, and the lights start, you know, getting dim,
Right.
you start more in tune to your hearing and your senses.
Mhm.
And that's one of the other things, too, you know, we were sitting in a dark building,
Right.
so, you know, you really can't see anything, but you can hear, you know, as they say, when you start losing your eyesight, your hearing gets better, you know, different stuff like that.
Right, you
Other
compensate.
senses
Yes.
are augmented by
Yes.
default.
Yes, and you know, so when we heard it, you know, we picked it up on every piece of audio equipment, and you know, it was just spectacular. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more besides a full body apparition happening right in front of you. Fortunately, we haven't had that yet, so,
No holy
or
grail
at least that we
yet.
could see. No, no holy grail.
Well, I think it will come. It will
Yeah,
come in
yeah.
time if you keep at it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We've been very fortunate, and for a fairly new group, we've got a lot of two of our best investigations. The two investigations we got the most evidence from happened right away, so we're kind of jaded. You know, we kind of expected this to keep happening. You know, 8 investigations later, we never really got this like a gambler. You got your big fix
think you-
early on, and you never really.
You may have jinxed yourself
Yeah, then
too much too
unfortunately, we got too much too soon, and then the next 4 or 5 were nowhere near what we got.
Yet
first
it'll
couple
keep you
times.
enthused. It'll keep you going.
Yeah, yeah. Just that little bit that you get every now and then that keeps you going.
Keeps the faith.
And we go to neat places, so it's always fun to
Yeah.
visit. Anyway.
Like we have the Milford investigations coming up, so it should be a blast. I think we're doing one a month, 3 of the houses, so
soon. Yeah.
should be pretty neat.
Well, we very much look forward to investigating with you.
Oh, definitely. Anytime, you guys are more than welcome.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And there's actually an instance where we didn't actually investigate with you, but we were there at the same time.
Mhm.
That is, of course, the Fairfield Inn,
Yep.
Warwick, Rhode Island,
Yeah.
36 Jefferson Boulevard.
Mhm. That was a good time.
Yeah.
That was
Maybe you can
fun.
pull some strings and see if we can get into like Lovecraft's old apartment or something.
Well, this would be the man to talk to right here.
The H.P. Lovecraft
I'd
aficionado.
pay you. Hey,
Well, we'll discuss
That'd be
H.P. later, too,
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
We'll
What I
discuss them
found-
over dinner.
okay.
What I found really with that investigation, though, was too many people, too much talking, too much
Well,
cross-contamination,
yeah,
you know.
it was actually during the TAPS convention.
Yeah, so,
So
you
you
know,
had a
it
lot
was,
going on.
yeah, there was really, you know, any evidence that I collected during it was just kind of,
Questionable.
yeah. You know, it was like anything, you know, I just kind of, when I got home, I threw on the headphones, I was like, oh, audio's out, you know.
Well, we're
video,
winding down for time. How do we want to sum this up, except to say thank you very much for a
Well,
most
thank
interesting...
you so
Thank
much
you
for
for having
having
us.
us back
us.
again. Sandra's going to say a word about our contact info.
Yes, I will. As always, we'd like you to know that we at New England Anomalies Research and NEPVRG are available to research local alleged hauntings or assist those of you who may be experiencing unexplained phenomena in your home or place of business. We'd also like to hear from you if you have a show suggestion, or even if you'd like to be a guest on Ghosts Are Near. So give us a shout at ghostsarnear@inbox.com. We'll believe you.
And Chris Angelo, our dear friend, this is in memory of you. God bless, we're thinking of you.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, guys. You're going to make a return trip, right?
Thank you, definitely.
That's our show
Absolutely.
for today. Thank you for watching. God bless. See you next time.